Gather around, friend, I've got some news you're gonna love. I decided to use my extensive VR skills today. You know, that mix of technical know-how and artistic genius, to host an online VR design hackathon. Oh, and believe me, it was a spectacular confluence of digital artistry and creativity. I had quite a few talented participants show up, like that tech whiz, Matt, and our very own Jane. And I gotta tell you, the imagination on display was just mind-boggling. Everyone unlocked their full VR potential, creating immersive environments that were out of this world. There was this one masterpiece, a lifelike VR forest scene that captured my attention. It was as if a scene straight out of a fairy tale had come to life before my eyes. But of course, my luminescent landscape with glowing unicorns still holds the crown in my heart. Who wouldn't enjoy a ride on a glowing unicorn through a starlit landscape, right? After the VR extravaganza, got to chat with Eric and Nina. Eric was his usual self, excited about another successful investor meeting for TurboTech. You'd think he'd just conquered the tech world in one fell swoop. Well, in a way, he has. And Nina, she's been cooking up a storm as usual, tried a killer curry she claims is spicier than a dragon's breath. By the way, do you remember that project we worked on during college with Eric's code? I couldn't help but fondly remember our code-turned-art adventure when we were reminiscing about old times in the group chat. We sure have come a long way since then, haven't we? You remember that competition we won back then, don't you? Even Eric had to admit it wasn't a bad idea after all, although I think it took him a while to recover from the initial shock. But hey, that's what led us here, embarking on crazy hackathons and endeavors. Also, did you hear about the new BioShock game trailer? They've got an underwater city, neon lights, a compelling story, and all. It's absolutely incredible and strongly reminds me I should stream it when it's out. Oh, almost forgot. Tried a new jasmine tea today. It was so fragrant and soothing, I instantly thought of you. I know how much you love your teas. Been trying something a bit different lately, combining my love for VR and mental wellness into something marvelous. I've started incorporating a yoga routine into my VR environment. It's so fantastic to feel my mind shed all the accumulated stress as I go on a calming yoga journey, right in my own digitally created space. You should give it a try too. I bet you'd love it. Remember how crazy Ninja Theory games were? Nina, Eric, and I were chatting about their latest release, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. And yes, you heard it right. Apparently, it's lulled gamers into seventh heaven with its killer graphics. I'm stoked to get my hands on it this weekend. Speaking of the weekend plan, brace yourself. It's going to be jam-packed with digital adventures. Daytime is for mindfulness in my VR yoga setup, followed by an afternoon hackathon. You can imagine the chaos that's gonna ensue. Wrapping it up with the new game at night. Now that's what I call living the tech dream. In more gaming news, Nina is challenging everyone to a rematch at Overcooked. After her previous efforts set the digital kitchen on fire, I'm a bit curious as to what she'll conjure up this time. Hoping that counter isn't going to blaze into flames again, mostly because I don't want to be stuck with cleanup duty. In between all the hacks and gaming, I thought, why not try to promote some mental wellness in tech too? Young Eric jumped on the bandwagon, and we're hoping to get more tech enthusiasts on board. Fingers crossed, this whole thing might just put a positive spin on people's perception of VR. On another note, I just remembered an old memory the other day. It was one of our college projects that we'd worked on with Eric's code. Remember how it felt like our own code-turned-art adventure? Good times, right? Fast forward to now, and we're all diving headlong into hackathons and all sorts of creative endeavors. Life's funny like that, isn't it? And speaking of funny, I remembered your obsession with tea today. I came across this delicious jasmine tea, and it was extremely fragrant. Very soothing. I instantly thought of you. It feels like it'd be right up your alley. So for today's daily experiment, I decided to ditch the pixels for a bit and step into the world of charcoal sketching. It's something different than the usual. You know what I mean? It was kind of the same thrill as stepping into an alien-themed VR world, but this time it was just me, a street performer named Carlos, and my sketch pad. Emptum Carlos was doing this crazy juggling act in the middle of the concrete jungle, and there I was, trying to capture the flurry of his movements, the enthusiasm in his eyes, and the rhythm of the city all in shades of gray. And the charcoal, oh. It's a whole new world compared to my beloved stylus and the smooth glass of the drawing pad. Smudging and blending with my fingers was somehow both primitive and liberating, like tasting a wild fruit after years of processed food. Add in a bit of New York City's street charm, trust me. It wouldn't be too wild to say that it was a trip down the rabbit hole. Remember how we always loved the idea of stepping out of our comfort zones? Well, this one was definitely a theater-wide step out of my digital domain. Speaking of theaters, there was a bit of comedy in the group chat today. Apparently, Eric decided to describe his culinary ordeals as works of art. I personally think they're more like Dali's surrealism, rather than Michelangelo's harmony, if you catch my drift. And up I am. Anyway, I dropped a small bomb on them. The news of me stepping into the traditional side of the arts for a while today. Despite the ongoing jibes that Eric's cooking should be on the must-avoid list of New York's finest culinary experiences, he remained adamant on his midnight snack expedition. I just hope his culinary confidence doesn't result in some unexpected fire alarm mayhem again. And you know the best thing that came out of today's adventure? I got a deeper appreciation for the passion I find in digital art. Charcoal sketching made me come up with new shades, new perspectives, and that further drew me towards the boundless dimensions that VR offers. Life needs that balance, I guess, like yin and yang. Too much of tech perhaps needed a bit of an old-school interjection. Yeah, it was different but exciting. Keeps the wheel spinning, you know? Also, I'm stoked to bring this newfound appreciation back to my design world. I want to play with new grayscale elements in my 3D designs, maybe even explore new textures akin to the charcoal effect. You know me, always on the lookout for those fresh ingredients to sprinkle on my work. Anywho, at the end of the day, it's just us artists trying to sketch our souls out on any medium we get our hands on. Let it be pixels or charcoal, the world should brace for the storm we're just starting to brew.